Welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time it is for you right now. All our Singularitarians, we're so excited to be here again with you today. We have a great lineup of individuals to talk with. Ben will be joining shortly, but we're starting with Matt Eclay, our CSO at SingularityNET, Keller Crawford, our Chief Innovation Officer at SingularityNET, Jan Horlings, of course, our Chief Deep Funding Officer at SingularityNET, and then Ben, CEO, will be joining shortly. So welcome again. Good to have you here as we go into this exciting discussion about the recently released RFPs for Hyperon, Meta, and AGI development. There's Ben. Welcome, Ben. Good to see you. We're just saying hi, kicking off. We had some technical excitement and just getting going right now. Perhaps, Ben, now you're here, you can give us a little bit of a background and overview on Hyperon itself before we dive directly into
Sure
the
thing.
RFPs.
So OpenCog Hyperon is the latest in a series of would-be AGI architectures that I've developed with a number of colleagues, including Dr. Matt Eclay, who's on this call, who's been working with me on these ideas since time immemorial. So I mean, we had the WebMind AI engine, then the Novamenta AI engine, then the original OpenCog, which was open source from Novamenta AI engine, which is now called OpenCog Classic. And all of these systems changed and evolved over time, but they had in common that we have a large weighted labeled hypergraph or metagraph living in memory spread across multiple machines. And there's a variety of different AI, learning, reasoning, perception, action, motivation, attention algorithms interoperating together on this large distributed knowledge metagraph. And we've learned a lot by experimenting with each of these systems. We built various backends to various commercial software systems using each of these iterations. But 2-3 years ago, we came to the conclusion it was once again time to sort of take the same complex of ideas, but rebuild the software implementation from scratch, both because we had a bunch of new math theory ideas that told us new ways to implement knowledge metagraphs and to implement different kinds of algorithms within them. And also just because the world of software and hardware had advanced a lot since Novamente and the OpenCog Classic, right? So I mean, we saw that it will be possible to re-architect things so as to achieve a much higher degree of scalability, leveraging modern software tools and modern hardware infrastructure. And if you look at what's been going on with convolutional neural nets and transformers and LLMs and ChatGPT and all this, I mean, there's a lot of brilliant work there, but a lot of the story is about scale, right? And it's about taking algorithms and methodologies that have been around for a long time, trying to deploy them at a much larger scale, much more compute and much more data, then adjusting and improving the algorithms. And I mean, I don't want to trivialize that. Like a Jürgen Schmidhuber's long short-term memory from '96, it's a lot like a transformer, but it's not a transformer, right? I mean, there's a lot of tinkering and improvement that's happened along the way, but still, a lot of what happened is you took old ideas, scaled them up massively, and saw they could do amazing new things, right? So obviously, we've been working on this complex of ideas around WebMind, Novamente, OpenCog for a long time. They've done some interesting things. These systems haven't generated human level AGI yet, right? Obviously, there's the thought, well, what if we took some variation of these ideas we've been experimenting with for so long and just tried them out at a massively greater scale? You know, maybe amazing things will pop out, right? And maybe if you do this with an algorithm, with an architecture that's a well thought out approach to human level AGI, you can go even further than if you do that with these hierarchical neural nets that have been scaled up to form ChatGPT and such, which after all were never really incredibly thought out AGI designs. So, we started building OpenCog Hyperon as an infrastructure for this class of AGI architecture that we felt could scale up massively on modern software and hardware frameworks. And there's a few different parts of it. So I mean, there's the distributed atom space, which is being developed by Andre Senna and his team in Belo Horizonte and around Brazil, which lets you take a big knowledge graph and knowledge metagraph, dynamic living knowledge metagraph spread across many different machines and have the parts on the different machines all coordinate with each other in a mix of persistent memory and RAM. There's then a novel AGI programming language called Meta, METTA, which is a name I conveniently introduced a couple months before Facebook renamed their company name to Meta with one T though, right? So there's the Meta programming language, which began as, I guess, a half-assed acronym for Meta Type Talk, METTA, because it's a gradually dependently typed language with a bunch of fancy type theory machinations in it. So Meta is a language designed specifically for implementing AGI according to this sort of paradigm we've been pursuing in OpenCog and predecessor systems. So a meta program, in essence, is a collection of rules for rewriting part of a knowledge metagraph into another part of a knowledge metagraph. And the meta program itself is very naturally expressed as part of that metagraph, right? So the whole thing is this big graph, this big metagraph, which is able to self-modify and self-rewrite itself, right? So it's very easy to have meta programs rewriting other meta programs. So for programming language geeks, I mean, it's sort of a convergence of functional programming and logic programming, right? And we're working in a bunch of stuff from type theory and homotopy type theory and so forth. A programming language doesn't solve AGI, right? It can at best be a help to AGI, a help to humans in programming AGI, and a help to the AGI in programming itself. We've progressed nicely with that. There's a bunch of people now coding in Meta language, and we had some demonstrations of some of the stuff they've been doing at the Hyperon workshop at the AGI 24 conference in Seattle in August. Meta is not yet as scalable as we need it to be, and we have several different initiatives underway to massively speed up the current implementation of Meta, and preliminary results are good. I mean, it looks like the current version can be sped up by at least 100,000 to a million by some of the work that's already in alpha form. So it looks like either by the end of this year or at worst first quarter of next year, we should have a massively sped up Meta infrastructure. The blockchain connection here is sort of another story, but we've been working on taking Meta language and using it as a smart contract language, and we've been looking at ways to sort of extend what's being done in the hypercycle ledgerless blockchain into a sort of metacycle framework, which builds on what hypercycle has done by using Meta for smart contracts. And we should have some interesting announcements on that soon, but I don't want to digress to that from the focus of this call. Given that we can now code stuff in Meta, even if the scaling up is still underway, it's now become interesting to start taking all of our ideas about how to make an AGI and start actually coding them in the new framework, right? So the framework of Hyperon could be used for a lot of different things. I mean, Patrick Hammer and Peter Isse have implemented a version of the NARS, non-axiomatic reasoning system framework in Meta, and Barrett Cook implemented a version of his Eris few-shot inductive learning algorithm in Meta, which are in the midst of launching on the ASI platform using a combination of SingularityNET and fetch infrastructure. You can implement biologically realistic neural nets in Meta and Hyperon, and in fact, we're working a bit with Alex Ororbia at RIT on his unique predictive coding based methods of learning neural nets, and one way to implement those will be in a Hyperon metagraph, right? On the other hand, much of the motivation for building Hyperon as it is has been that we have a specific cognitive architecture, so a specific way of building AGI on this infrastructure that we've been working on for a while, and I'd called this architecture Cog Prime in the book Engineering General Intelligence that I wrote with a number of colleagues in 2014. That name, in hindsight, was kind of ugly and hasn't stood the test of time. Nobody used it, so I decided to make up another name, which varies on that, which was Primus, which I think that was supposed to be an acronym for something too. That's like the probabilistic intelligent mind universe system. I don't remember what the hell it was, but in any case, the important point is Elon Musk has these Optimus robots, and if you've watched the Transformer TV show with the robots turning into cars, you know that while Optimus is the biggest, mightiest robot, Primus is the whole planet of Cybertron. Primus is the ultimate god of the Transformers. So it seemed like and and he's the force of good, benevolence, and love in the Transformer universe as well. So he he's able to battle the dark forces back into the void realm. So this we've got our work cut out for us to create Primus here, and in seriousness, so the Primus, formerly OpenCog Prime design, it got a lot of parts to it, right? And it is laid out in the book Engineering General Intelligence, and more recently in a paper on Hyperon, which is on archive.org. But it's not small and simple as, say, a transformer neural net or a logic theorem prover. It combines a number of different learning and reasoning algorithms. I think it's much simpler than the human brain, which has 300 or 400 major distributed networks spanning multiple regions, all interoperating with each other, right? So I think it's tries to be as simple as possible, but not simpler, right? As the apocryphal quote attributed to Einstein says. So I mean we try to deal with goal-oriented actions and then spontaneous non-goal-driven actions. We deal with declarative reasoning. We deal with procedure learning, with perception, with action learning, with spread of attention, with creation of new concepts and creative ideas. And each of these things needs its own particular algorithms. Yet the particular algorithms for each of these things need to interoperate with each other in this distributed knowledge metagraph, right? So that's a long story. That is also a story I've told before, but what we're here to talk about now is some requests for proposals, which basically are offers to give R&D grants to AI developers who are interested to build AI code in meta language, sort of building in the direction of one of the components of the Primus cognitive architecture. And there's been a bit of a balance here because on the one hand, we didn't want to make this a fully open call for proposals. I mean, we do have those within the deep funding program from SingularityNET, and we will have more, right? But here we weren't looking for that here, where we're looking at, like, we have what we think is a specific way to move toward human level AGI and then super intelligence. And we want to try to pull together effort in a collective way toward this particular architecture. On the other hand, it's a relatively loose architecture, right? So we do want people to be creative in how they implement things within this architecture. So, for example, okay, we need concept formation. We need to cluster concepts into new concepts, but there's a lot of algorithms you could use to do that. Eager to have people use their imaginations to figure out what ways to realize that. We need mechanisms to spread attention in a large knowledge graph so that at a given moment the AI can figure out which things in the knowledge graph are most worthy of paying attention to. We have some algorithms to do attention allocation that we've prototyped and published papers on. On the other hand, the world has changed since 2018 when we last dug into that. New ideas about how to allocate attention dynamically within a knowledge metagraph are quite welcome, right? So that in authoring these RFPs that we can go through in more detail, but the idea was to leverage people's creative effort and insight just toward those specific sorts of AI algorithms that we think need to be pieced together to form a human level mind by the Primus architecture. So doesn't cover every piece of Primus. Well, basically, we tried to pick stuff that seemed like could be meaningfully done at the current stage of development of the Hyperon infrastructure. So, like, if something needs Meta to already be massively scaled up in order to even do anything, then we didn't put that into this batch of RFPs. It could go into a future one. So we want things where you can prototype and experiment with an early version with the system as it exists now, and then it will just work better once there's a scaled up infrastructure. Bearing in mind the scaling up of the infrastructure is going on in parallel with the execution of the work funded by these RFPs. So it's a new thing that we are experimenting with, and there's a lot to learn, not only about the AI being experimented with, but about how we should be ongoingly tweaking and crafting the Hyperon infrastructure, and then also something to learn about how to work with teams that are responding to the RFPs and receiving funding, and how to sort of work the mechanics of collaboration between the internal SingularityNET teams and the deep funded team. So it's going to be an interesting adventure, but I'm pleased to see we've already gotten a fair number of proposals submitted, and the call is still open a little bit longer. So I'm anticipating we will get some more. And Matt and Keller, who are on this call together with Jan, who runs deep funding, have been instrumental in sort of going from the concepts of the RFPs to actual RFPs that we could post online and use to solicit developers. So I see, Haley, we've got a bunch of questions. I'm not sure if we want to run through what the RFPs are in this call, or just let people read them and ask questions, or what's
I think we won't have time to dive into all of them. They're so good, but perhaps Keller, perhaps Matt, you both each could give a little bit of an overview of some of the topics and themes and directions that they're looking in.
I should add there's I think, was there 12 or 13 altogether? So I think the majority was what I've already said, which is engineering specific AI algorithms or tools within the Primus framework. But there's a few others that were thrown in because they seemed relevant and important, right? So I think that there's one which is just generate a bunch of meta code doing anything that's reasonably meaningful so that we can use it to train AI models to generate meta code and be meta coding systems. Because like right now, GPT-o1 is totally moronic and incompetent in meta. And I tried really hard to get it not to be, because it can be kind of stupid at Python and standard languages, but it's also kind of useful, right? But we've not managed to get it to be kind of useful for meta. I think we can fine tune open LLMs to make a meta coding assistant, but we need more training data, right? Then we also had done some exploration of what out there classical or quantum computing hardware might accelerate Hyperon development, and just exploring that is a lot of work. So we put a couple RFPs out there for people who are interested to put serious time into sort of doing research into what are the cutting edge hardware we should be exploring next. So there are those things, but then the majority are algorithms within the Primus framework. And I mean, Matt or Keller, you could probably just rip through the titles of what they are in like 2 minutes. That might make sense.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I think we covered most of them. Let's see, investigate and demonstrate the potential of using LLMs for semantic. Oh, sorry, let's go this list. Explore and demonstrate the use of evolutionary algorithms like CMAES for training transformers and other DNNs. Develop and maintain interesting demos in Meta. The goal there is just to stimulate and incentivize people to come in and have fun with Meta, do interesting educational experiments with Meta. Also building up a Meta code that could be used, a feeder for more of a corpus exercise, which leads me to the next one, which is create a meta corpus. So doing a number of pairs for a meta corpus that can be used to train an LLM for natural language to meta generation. Implement a clustering heuristics in Meta, just re-implementing those heuristics. Developing a framework for motivational systems, including human-like and other types. Utilize LLMs for modeling and generation within Moses, the evolutionary algorithm. Create a framework for evaluating approaches to attention allocation. Our sort of way of coming from sort of ECAN, but then as Ben said, it's been a minute, so welcoming new fresh takes on that. Experimenting with concept blending, including fuzzy and pair-consistent formal concept analysis in Meta. Explore and demonstrate the use of different neurosymbolic DNNs architectures like pi neurologic and Kolmogorov-Arnold networks for higher order reasoning. Use probabilistic logic networks, PLN, on atom-space knowledge graphs to provide an interesting alternative to GraphRag for giving LLMs memory, improving how LLMs access memory and improving the efficiency and reliability there. Study how PLN inference control can be guided by causal networks, and/or how PLN rules can be used to distinguish causal versus correlative relationships. And then there's those two that are aggregating AGI related hardware research. This is just go and collect the breaking edge, and this is a pretty big task that requires digging deep. Same kind of thing with quantum computing technologies that can be used related to AGI, particularly with distinguishing the reality from much of the hype out there. So Ben covered them pretty good. I think, yeah, some really interesting ones in here. And then there's a
Yeah,
couple.
there's a lot there, and you can see. On the other hand, we're just getting started, right? So I mean, the way we dealt with attention allocation, it seemed like there's so many ways to do attention allocation. We don't even know the right way to compare them. So we are soliciting input on not only what's a good way to do attention allocation in an AGI system, but what's a good way even to measure or compare different approaches, right? So if you look at the RFPs, we put a fair bit of thought into how to pose these in a way that will be productive at the current stage. And if, assuming it goes well, which I believe it will, if we do something else like this a year from now or something, it'll be at a whole different stage, right? Because we should have Hyperon scaled up by then. We should have a lot more test suites, both software and cognitive test suites, and we'll be able to frame things quite differently. But an aspect of this that is exciting to me is just, giving a way to expand the community of people working on this approach to decentralized AGI. I mean, the code of Hyperon is open source, and of course, our decentralized platforms are open. So it's, in a way, it's always open for people to contribute. But sometimes it's good to give people a nudge to get them started, and we're hoping that these proposals can do that.
And as we see at the AGI technical conferences every year, there's just brilliant researchers out there building different approaches, directions, seeing completely different ways of heading towards an AGI-ish system, and to support, to outreach, to grow the Hyperon community, the Meta community into those researchers, to give them an opportunity to have funding for the directions that they're looking on that can also be contributive to the general growth of AGI, but Hyperon and Meta as well. I'm really excited about that. I'm trying to reach out to all of the network of people that we work with every year to make sure that they know about this opportunity and get involved in this opportunity. So perhaps, Matt, on that topic, you could dive into who should apply for these grants. What do they need to know or have or be or do to participate here?
So a number of great points there, and I'll circle to that. One of the things, following up on what Ben and Keller have and you've brought up already, yeah, it's about encouraging additional viewpoints. I've already seen some discussions of ideas we've not thought about. For example, it also one point I want to maybe go a little deeper, which is that in putting these RFPs together, it really, I would argue, gave us a chance to think deeply about how are we going to get all the pieces that we're asking for to work together, just like we want to work with the community together in developing this and making sure that it proceeds in a benevolent and beneficial manner. This gets to one of the key components, which is cognitive synergy. So as an example, when we were putting together the framework for measuring attention, I would say it took us deeper into what are all the components that we're looking for to achieve that. For example, how can we ensure that the different modules combine in synergistic ways to create cognitive synergy, and so that they work together? In terms of, so I think, as both Ben and Keller tried to indicate, that we've tried to make the RFPs broad enough to encourage these ideas, as well as giving specific ideas as examples, because it's hard to, I, for example, sometimes just need that seed to get started on developing new ideas, riffing off of other ideas and going there further. So I really want to encourage this sort of collaboration and innovative ideas, whatever ideas you have. We have a lot of ideas, but we're not the only ones in the room. And if you do have questions, we have an email, Hyperon_RFPs at SingularityNET.io to ask any questions. We're happy to work with all of you in helping you create successful proposals.
Thank you. Yeah, that's super
who should
helpful.
so who should apply? It's
who should have?
Yeah.
Community members, AGI conference participants. It's if you have ideas that you think address the sorts of things that we're looking for, and if you don't know, ask us.
I think people that have worked in functional programming languages that want to come in and experiment with Meta, I think.
Yes.
I would say, well, some members of our team, like Matt and myself, have been working on AGI R&D since the dawn of time. I mean, we have, for example, a sizable team of AI developers in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, and most of the team there are just a couple years out of university with undergrad degrees in computer science, math, electrical engineering, or something. And there's teams in our Ethiopia lab implementing Moses, which is an evolutionary programming algorithm in Meta. There's a team implementing pattern mining to find surprising patterns in metagraphs. And if you look at the video record of the Hyperon workshop at AGI 24, you'll see Abdul Rahman Semri, who's from our team in Addis, and he's presenting use of OpenCog PLN inference to infer things about biology and genomics. So, I mean, these are all super, super bright people. On the other hand, they don't have like PhD and dozens of publications on the advanced AI, right? So what we see from the example of our Ethiopia team is that if you know how to program, you know undergraduate computer science, you have a passion for AI, you can totally learn this stuff, and you can plunge in and contribute fundamentally to building would-be AGI systems. So I mean, indeed, these are not for the general public exactly, but I think that anyone with the fundamentals of programming and computer science knowledge and some curiosity and a heck of a lot of patience can plunge in and do this sort of work that we're offering to fund here.
And one other point is there is a diversity amongst these 13 in terms of the level of expertise required.
Sure.
So that was purposeful, and the measure of complexity. Some of them you'll need to dive in, right? For example, the hardware and the two hardware, the quantum computing and the AGI hardware. RFPs take a particular set of specialized knowledge. Some of the clustering heuristics are relatively simple. They're ports of some basic clustering algorithms into the Meta
Yeah,
language. So they're
although
very useful.
implementing clustering in a concurrency friendly way in Meta can become interesting as well. So even the relatively simple ones can give some avenue to complexify things if your mind goes in that direction, right? So, but I think we need a bigger community if you're gonna pull this off, right? I mean, I think that the Primus design actually can lead to human level AGI, and I mean the argument for that is complex because it's a complex thing. But if you take the time to dig in and read and compare with how the brain works and cognitive science works, I think there's a credible argument that this can lead to human level AGI. Hyperon infrastructure is designed to support Primus among other things, and we've got hooks into these decentralized networks. But this is a big thing, right? I mean, SingularityNET is bigger than it was a couple of years ago, but we're way smaller than the AI teams of even OpenAI, let alone Meta or Microsoft or Google or something, right? And I mean, if hardware is one challenge. I mean, we're building our own supercomputers in SingularityNET, but we're going to rely heavily on large decentralized networks of processors as well. But just we need more people with expertise and passion and dedication to help pull this off. Because if you've ever done any large scale software engineering or any kind of research, everything ends up taking more time and work than you thought it would when you started out, right? So I mean, even though we have a quite clear roadmap, there's a lot in architecture that there's a lot to do. I mean, we can use more helpers, and the SingularityNET and Hyperon teams need to be the seed of the community that builds this, rather than the totality of the community that builds it. So the hope is that the groups that we pull in with these RFPs, in many cases, will keep contributing afterwards, and then help grow the community further, bringing more people in. And I think the Linux community is a nice analogy for this, right? I mean, Linus Torvalds and his college friends didn't have to build the entire Linux ecosystem that we see now, but a small group of people with Torvalds and Stallman and their networks did seed the thing, right? So I mean, we need to perform a similar act of seeding of developer networks, and I think blockchain and tokens give a tool that should help with this, and so we're optimistic that we can succeed in this way, as well as at getting some specific technical things built here.
I think what's really I just wanted to make a comment that I think what's really exciting about this round of RFPs is they've been cherry picked, teed up, thought through. They're right at a point where the technologies are ready to start piecing together and experimenting with, and these synergies can have far-reaching consequences if they work and take
it's pretty cool to be here, right? Like when we started rebuilding OpenCog and creating Meta, to be honest, a few of our longtime team members were like, holy shit, don't do this. It's going to take you 10 years to make a new programming language. And in fact, it took about as long as we thought it would in the first place. It took a couple years to get where we are now, but it didn't take 10 years. So I think we haven't gone quite as fast as OpenAI has in the last few years. But on the other hand, if you look at how long it normally takes to take a totally radical new programming language paradigm and take it from research papers to math to a system you can play with, I don't know if it's ever happened that fast in the history of programming languages, to take a new programming language paradigm and make it real so rapidly. So I do feel like we're on a roll here, but probably in part because we have a great team and ideas that we've thought out for a while, but in part it's just the time that we're in now, right? I mean, the tooling and infrastructure is coming together. So just a lot of things in the AI space are able to go faster and more smoothly than in previous eras. So yeah, Jan, you've been very quiet, looking very wise and profound here in your little box. Do you have anything to add?
I do my
It'd
best.
be great, Jan,
My
if you
concept.
could let us know a little bit about how people can get involved. What's the process look like, and
Well,
everything about this grant program.
yeah, let me say I'm incredibly glad that Deep Funding is here to support this process of these 15 RFPs. I'm really, really happy having these 15 wonderful RFPs and having the platform to invite the community to collaborate with us. So Deep Funding in itself is all about collaboration, right? It's about, we always say the best way to build a community is not only build for the community, but to build with the community. So that's what we preach, but also do in Deep Funding. And this is that's a parallel what I'm seeing now also with OpenCog Hyperon. It's not just the internal team doing things, but also reaching out to the wider community and asking community members to help build with us. Because if we want this whole thing to be decentralized, also the building process to some extent needs to be decentralized, and we need everybody here to contribute. So yeah, Deep Funding, I don't want to dwell too much about this because I see Deep Funding in this scenario as a facilitator for this process, and it's not the hero of this process. The hero of this process is OpenCog Hyperon and these RFPs. But at the beginning, so we had two milestones, two important milestones in Deep Funding. At the beginning of this year, we transitioned from an off-the-shelf platform to our own custom platform. And we had the first Deep Funding round, which is open to everybody to bring their idea and to get awarded for a grant on our own platform. And it's because we made that transition and we now have our own platform that we're also able to do new things like facilitate this whole new process for RFPs. I don't think that would be quite possible in the old situation. And I'm also pretty sure it won't stop there. We'll have other innovations and other ways to engage the community in all the things that we're doing in different ways of funding and in collaborating. So Deep Funding is all about helping the decentralized AI platform grow. It's all about helping OpenCog Hyperon grow. And it's all about building a community, of creating a community of builders, as we call it. So yeah, I think it's another piece of the puzzle. So we're talking about a lot of pieces of puzzles coming together here. And I'm incredibly happy that I can support this in a small and modest way by my own piece called Deep Funding. So maybe I should talk a little bit about the RFPs and the process and what people can do and what they can expect when they submit a proposal. So it's important to note that in principle, each RFP, so we have 15 RFPs, has its own life cycle. However, we decided in this case to start with a large batch of 15 RFPs because we wanted to have everybody that comes to Deep Funding and gets exposed to the RFPs, not only to see 1, 2, or 3, but to see a whole collection of them because yeah, there's diversity in topic, but also in complexity. And you can have the whole bandwidth of things out there and see what best fits you. But of course, it won't stop there. over the coming months and quarters and years, there will be more and more RFPs. There will be RFPs on OpenCog Hyperon. There will be RFPs on other topics, on blockchain topics, on whatever. So deep funding is diversifying. We started with rounds and now we have RFPs. These first batch of RFPs are mostly created by SingularityNET. There's one RFP there, which is a joint RFP between Deep Funding and Cardano Catalyst. That's another milestone in itself. And further down the line, we will also have RFPs that are created by the community. So we will also invite the community to come together to ideate and to collaborate and create RFPs of themselves. So there's much more to come there. About this life cycle, because we started with this whole batch, you will see that there's a counter on each RFP, which counts back. And right now you have about 19, 20 days left. At the end of those days, the team that is responsible for the particular RFP will assess the proposals that are coming in and will decide whether, in general, the proposals have high enough quality to make a selection and to close the RFP. It might be in some cases that the team thinks, well, we think we'll wait a little bit and see if we can get some more proposals in. So there is an option to extend that timeline. So over time, not every RFP will have the same counter, but it will be a more diverse thing. Also, new RFPs might be published. And if you want to be informed about that and stay in touch about that, I would recommend to subscribe to the newsletter. You can mark that you are interested in new RFPs, and that way you will always stay updated when a new RFP is published. So if you have read a few RFPs and have browsed through them and you want to create a proposal, you can click the proposal button and it will guide you through a process step by step where you can define all the ins and outs of your proposal. Be aware that every RFP comes with its own requirements and conditions, and you have to comply to all the conditions in the RFP. So read every RFP carefully. You are allowed to submit to more than one RFPs, but then it's all the more important to read very carefully to all the rules and conditions. Every proposal is milestone based, so we expect you to break down your proposal in a number of milestones, and with each milestone define the amount that is related to it and the deliverables that you will put forward as part of that milestone, because that will also determine how the disbursements of that grant is going. You won't get the whole amount right away, but on each milestone. Also important to mention right now, I think, you might have questions on some of these RFPs. I'm sure I would have if I would read through all of them. And there is a discussion tab on each RFP. And if you have a question on that particular RFP, just go to the discussion tab, add your question there. And the people that are in charge, that own that RFP, will get notified of your question. And then I have every confidence that they will answer that very quickly. And then you will in turn get notified of that answer. So, and the great thing about that is that not only you will be informed of this question, but everybody else also that wants to submit. So it's an equal playing field. About equal playing field, that's another important thing to mention. What we did in the past with deep funding rounds is that when somebody submitted a proposal, it was visible to everybody. And we noticed always there was a huge peak at the last 24 or 48 hours of deep funding rounds. And when diving into that a little bit, we found out that people were a little bit anxious, at least some concerned that people might copy their ideas or their proposals. This is even more a concern when you're answering to the same RFP with the same conditions. So what we did for these RFPs, there is a locked state, meaning that when you submit your proposal, only the general public will only see the highlights of your proposal. So the subject and the summary and who issued the proposal. What they won't see is the amount requested, and what they won't see is all the requirements. So you don't have to be worried about any competitor of yours seeing what you proposed and copying your proposal or trying to cut down just below your price or whatever. However, you and any team member that you will add to your proposal will be able to see the whole thing. So that might be a little bit confusing. That's why I'm mentioning it now this elaborately. But I would say, yeah, there's no reason not to get going and just to submit your proposal. And even after submitting, you can still make any change you like. So yeah, we already have a number of proposals in, and that's great to see. But I'm pretty sure there will be a lot more coming, especially with all the publications that we will see over the coming days and weeks, which is great news for not only for SingularityNET, also for deep funding. I'm very sure and confident that with this new initiative of these great RFPs created by the three brilliant gentlemen here in the call, will also drive a new audience to deep funding. And we hope they will not only come to the for the RFPs for these 15, but also for future RFPs. And you will stick around and you will help us build that community. So yeah, go to deepfunding.ai. You will find the RFPs there. If you're interested in anything else around deep funding as such and the community and the way that we govern and operate the system, I would invite you to come to community.deepfunding.ai. You'll find all the information there on how we operate deep funding. And yeah, I think that's the main thing I want to say. Any questions?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jan. Deep funding is a little bit different program, being built on blockchain, being about community and community building and outreach as well. So thanks for walking us through a little bit about how that process looks and will work. And again, we welcome any questions on that at the Hyperon RFP email and at Deep Funding itself, so that you can ask questions about the specific RFPs. You can ask questions about the deep funding process and how the proposal system works, the selection process works, the awarding and milestone process works, and we can dive into that with more detail for anyone who needs it.
Mm-hmm. We want to give the email again, and the website is deepfunding.ai.
Yeah.
The email, Matt, is what? Hyperon?
Hyperon, HYPERON _RFPS. Hyperon _RFPs at SingularityNET.io.
Yeah.
And we'll get that in the chat links as well.
Yeah, and if you know people, please pass it on.
Yeah, absolutely encourage people to form teams, reach out into their network, and really see how far and wide we can grow this opportunity and this initiative and this community. Hyperon is designed to be a flexible, modular framework for anybody's AGI. We have particular ideas about Primus and how it will fit together, but even that's designed to be flexible and modular and growable, and as different AI directions develop, incorporating the latest, greatest, most interesting, most intelligent artificial systems. And this process itself is designed that same way too, to be flexible, modular, deep funding, the RFPs, and everything here. Any questions from the community? I don't see anything about the RFPs specifically yet. If anybody has questions, please reach out into the comments, and our moderators will pass them to us. And any thoughts from Ben, Matt, Keller, Jan? Any last thoughts or ideas to share with the community?
Yeah, I would just say don't be shy. and go to these RFPs. And if you have any question whatsoever, it doesn't have to be a brilliant thing, but also a practical question or whatever, just write them in the discussion tab and start a conversation there. And it would be good to see some dynamics going on. And you're very...
I mean, I think we're eager to collaborate with folks who are interested to work on this stuff. So as Matt said, some of the RFPs are more hardcore or challenging than others, and we're certainly open to people who have tremendous experience and confidence and just want to grab something and build and deliver something amazing on their own and check it in, and hopefully we can use it. It can be part of our thinking machine. On the other hand, we're also open to people who want to attack one of these problems in more of an interactive way. And the Hyperon team in SingularityNET, through AGI and some open source community, I mean, we're quite eager and willing to collaborate with folks as they sort of learn their way around, right? So I mean, I think we're quite aware we're figuring out how to do this process at the same time as we're figuring out how to build the thinking machine, and so we're basically opening things up in a certain way to expand the community of people helping us figure this out, right? So that's as Jan says, if you have the basic background needed and you understand what the RFPs are talking about, don't be shy about plunging in and responding. And that's about it. I mean, I think,
absolutely. We're opening this opportunity to fund and facilitate research toward AGI, and we want everybody who's interested in building that future to take advantage of it and receive a grant if possible.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it is quite remarkable time and position to be in, right? So I mean, if you believe that GPT-6 will be AGI, then all this stuff that we're doing is just sort of entertainment that's off to the side of the main thrust of AI development. But if you think that sort of approach is going to be interesting technologically but not get us to AGI, I would say the Hyperon initiative is the largest and most credible alternative to the deep neural net orthodoxy that's out there on the planet right now. As well, the SingularityNET and ASI ecosystem is the most credible decentralized infrastructure for AI as a platform for making AI that by its nature is not under control by any party, but in a more participatory way. So the fact that we've got both of these sort of unique things there in a way that fits together nicely is feels like a quite counterintuitive position to be in, actually. I mean, we've been working toward this for many decades, but I mean, now is the time when it's all happening, right? We're able to take these designs and we're able to implement them in a scalable way, and we're able to roll them out on a decentralized network. And we can make this real in the next few years in the same way that OpenAI and others made ChatGPT and such real in the last few years, right? And so there's a chance to plunge in and help make it real with us. Quite eager to see all the proposals that come in. There's already a bunch of cool ones in there.
Yep, there are. So thanks to everybody who's already proposed. Thanks to anybody who's checked out the RFPs and will in the future. Excellent celebration time. And thank you for joining us here today. You've got all the contact information for asking questions. This guy right here. Yeah, fireworks. Yeah.
No fireworks for me. No.
I turned mine off.
Nope.
And thanks very much for nice. Thanks very much for joining us.
right.
So thanks for the hearts, Kelly.